I'm never good enough. Nothing seems to be enough for my boss, for my partner, for my children, for everyone. And, okay, that is a very huge telltale sign.
What's up, Aventis family? You are listening to the fourth episode of Aventis Season 3. This show is brought to you by Aventis Learning Group, and I'm your host, 𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗲. If you're an individual who's trying to find your way around the corporate ocean, or trying to hashtag up your game with a career, this is where you should be. In today's episode, we'll be talking about drawing the line between work and life. Did you know in 2019, Straits Times printed this article on how Singapore came out 32nd out of 40 cities in the world on the list of work-life balance. And to no surprise, we came out second on the list of top overworked cities in the world. Yay! You see, we should be glad that the work-life balance idea is spreading across the world. Everybody's finally finding it important now. But as much as the idea of work-life balance is spreading, how do we know we are practicing it, and where can we draw the line between our job and our work? Let's find out. Our guest today is backed by popular demand. She's spoken on this show before and you guys loved her. I feel she's the perfect person to talk to because right now she's got a lot on her plate. So she probably knows how to, manage all these things well. She's got a lot on her plate. Anyway, let's bring her in. Hi, Maxine. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me back.
Okay, I understand you're actually juggling a lot of things right now. So we're living in the 21st century where, regardless of gender, everyone is hustling for their careers, right? So could you share with us what are the responsibilities that you hold as a 21st century woman today?
Wow, 21st century woman. I feel like a Wonder Woman, you see that? I'm sure I'm not alone, but many women, men, young child, they will have the same kind of pressures because things are different. If you talk about responsibilities, there are so many. Perhaps I like to use the expression of wearing hats, right? We all wear different hats, multiple hats, and play different roles. Amidst all the roles, I would narrow them down to three main hats. Right? Firstly, a hat of a business owner. I run a business. I have people who work with me. So I have all the different responsibilities there. And the second hat that I wear a lot is the hat of a mother, right? My son is just turning 20 years old this Sunday, and it's a very different experience being a businesswoman and a mother to a child as well. Yeah. And the third hat I would think I'm juggling all the time is as a daughter. I'm not one of those daughters when you're grown up and you don't really care about your parents. My mom is very much in my life every day. Yeah. And so in summary, with all these three kind of hats, right? Well, if I go into the details, it will take a whole hour, but I would just say that I think many of our listeners can relate to that. You try to play different roles at different times, and when it comes to the crunch, who do you choose or what do you choose to prioritize? And that can be really stressful.
Yeah. As a person who's got a lot on her plate, how do you know where to draw the line between work and life?
Actually, drawing the line is very subjective. Everyone has different lines, different borders, different boundaries. And I would think that as to when, if I can use the litmus test question, right? When you know what to do during certain times is firstly, you need to reflect on which are your priorities. For example, myself, right? Having so many things to juggle, I know very clearly if and when my mother or my son needs me and I have another meeting to go to, I will find everything I can to delegate it or reschedule. Means my family comes first. So that becomes very clear for me. And when you have clear boundaries and clear values, it really helps you to know where and when to draw the line. Some of us are very gray areas, like never mind, sometimes this, sometimes that. That's where you get into trouble. You start finding yourself sometimes going forth, going backwards, juggling between the two, and worse still, you end up being bad at both roles or wearing both hats. So to sum up, you need to have very clear idea of what are your values in life, so that when it comes to the crunch, you know what has to go first and which one you want to prioritize.
Okay, there's this whole like idea, especially I think it's pretty popular in Singapore. I'm not so sure, but it's quite widespread in America, whereby there's this term called workaholism. So everybody, as much as we're all chasing our careers, some people have their whole lives revolving around work. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I know this lism thing comes, you think of alcoholism, workaholism. It doesn't sound good, right? It sounds like a bad thing. It sounds like a vice. Firstly, let me define workaholism based on how I see it. Is that excessive compulsive disorder to just keep working. The moment you start working, you feel like, oh, something is wrong. I just got to keep doing it. Same thing with alcoholism, right? You just need to drink. You have the withdrawal symptoms when you don't drink. So that's my understanding of it. And just, if you relate that to having the idea of revolving your life around work, it could mean different things. You see where I'm going with that, right, Mira? Because you can be having a life around your work, because that will depend on each individual. Not all of us have a happy, full, complete family with a husband, a wife, the kids, and parents around. Some of us have nothing else to live for. What gives us that drive in life is to keep doing what we do and meeting people along the way. So I would draw a line between these two. Working compulsively and feeling that you need to keep doing that is definitely unhealthy by any standards, right? Anything in extremes will definitely lead to detrimental problems for your health, your everything, right? Your heart, your soul, your body, everything. But the idea of revolving your life around your work, it could be a main thing. If you look at successful people, or not successful, very amazing people in the world like Mother Teresa, she revolved her whole life about doing charity. To her work is charity, right? So for that, how I take on it is to be fair, is it varies from person to person, depending on your opportunity costs. If you're not working, what will you be doing? Or what are you giving up? For example, when I am working, I am giving up time with my family, right? So to me, if I do too much of my work, I am hurting my family, my loved ones, people who look to me to spend time. But let's say I'm a single, lonely person in the world and really have no family and friends. By revolving myself around my work, my opportunity cost is like just doing nothing at home. Then by all means, go pursue and give your heart and soul to your work.
So, what do you think is the first step to knowing whether we lack that work-life balance?
Yeah, I think this is the tricky question, right? Sometimes we're so lost in it, we don't even realize it. Like what I was mentioning earlier on about reflecting on what are your core values, what drives you. Same thing about knowing whether you are having a work-life balance is to first look at your own lifestyle. Do a bit of self-reflection, right? And as you look at your own lifestyle, you can tell, right, the telltale signs, right? First thing, if you realize that you have stopped taking care of yourself, you start thinking like, whatever, I don't need a haircut. On Zoom meetings, I don't turn on the video anyway. I don't need to exercise. I don't need to look good. No one looks at me anyway. I don't need to eat well. Nobody's looking at me. I don't care. When you start having this kind of thoughts, that means you're losing that balance. That's one very big telltale sign. Another telltale sign I find a lot is when I find very obvious is when you start feeling very irritable. What is it? Stop it! I don't know. What's going on? No, when you're having that kind of panic attacks, right? Quite often, and then you start to become very edgy and snap at everyone around you. Something is wrong, right? That balance has been tipped. The other two most likely is overwhelmed at work, and it could cause you to snap. And if I could pick another one, there's so many I have to say, but let's pick one more. When you feel like you are not enough, when you start thinking you are not enough, like no matter what you do, your boss will say you're not good enough. No matter how much time and effort you put to take care of your family or spend time with them, they will still criticize you that it's not enough, or rather you perceive them criticizing you. When you start telling yourself like, I'm never good enough, nothing seems to be enough for my boss, for my partner, for my children, for everyone. And, okay, that is a very huge telltale sign. And it is at the point where we need to do something. Does any of it describe you? I hope not, Myra.
No, not as of now, and hopefully not in the future too.
Yes.
It seems like a very, very painful thing to go through, you know.
I know.
Yeah.
It is. In fact, for myself, as you asked me, I'm asking myself, am I experiencing that? I was like, oh, okay. So far, so good.
You're still in the green zone.
Yes, still safe for now. But those of our listeners who are listening in and you're relating to what I say, those are serious telltale signs that we need to take action. Yes.
So what can they do once they've noticed, like, okay, I'm experiencing this, I'm in the orange zone or I'm in the red zone. What can I do from there?
I think the first thing is people who are depressed typically do not know that they are depressed. That's where I don't care anymore. And the step number one is really, if the conditions allow, really do talk to somebody. I have had friends in the past years who had depression, and when I noticed they were stop meeting me, and they start snapping and start being very emotional, talk halfway, and they will break into tears, then that's where I realized something is wrong. So number one, if you are in it and you can't tell, hopefully you have someone around you whom you can ask, like, what do you think is wrong with me? Please alert somebody. Because when you're in it, you cannot see it, right? You need to ask somebody to help you. So, but not everyone is blessed with a good friend or a supportive family member, right? And that's where the next step, if you have none of the above and you're suspecting because you're looking at yourself and you could tell from the telltale signs something is wrong. And that's where, on a serious note, we seek medical help. It may seem like a taboo from watching movies, like, oh, I need to see a shrink, it's a bad thing, I'm like psycho problem. No, it is a real issue, especially since last year, right? When the whole pandemic hit the world, when all the work and life balance is all off the scales, and many people have had mental illness issues.
Surfacing.
Yes, it's not even surfacing, my dear. It's a real issue. So many people have gone into depression, some suicidal, and basically it's no longer a taboo. So if there's no one else you can speak with, you do need, even if you speak with that person may not have the right approach to help you. They could just tell you, I am Mira, suck it up, come on, everyone is going through the same thing, what's wrong with you, right? Some of us could be very patronizing and we dismiss some of these emotions. So if and when that happens, do seek medical health and help. And there's some of us may be awkward going into a clinic or to be seen walking into one. And that's where remote medical advice is very popular right now. Just Google it. There's so many mental wellness doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists who are willing to meet you on Zoom so they can give you an initial analysis or prognosis based on what they are seeing. And then that's where they will arrange to meet you to give you an actual diagnosis.
Before working from home existed, like, we feel that we were already productive while we were working in the office, right? And then now that we're working from home, we feel that we should be more productive. So how can we prevent like burning out while working from home? Because like the lines are already very blurred right now when we work from home. How can we prevent the burnout?
Wow, okay. Firstly, there are a few assumptions in what you've said, and there are certain points that I like to break it up. When you say that we are working from home, we are working from office, we are already productive. So when you work at home, how do you become even more productive? Firstly, productivity is a matter of perspective. We think we're very productive, but our boss is like, no, you're not doing enough at work. So at home, you should do more. You don't need to commute. You don't have to travel. And that can cause us to feel very frustrated because it's not the reality. We become more productive in the workplace, at the office. Very often is because when we do certain things unknowingly, like walking along the corridor to an office for a meeting, or meeting up with friends, and then during lunchtime, that they will say, hey, you want to go for lunch? You would know when to take a break. But when it comes to at home, the lines are so blurred, right? You won't set an alarm at lunchtime, right? Sometimes we just keep working and working, and we're still got bosses think that we can have a working lunch, right? So we can have Zoom meeting and you can eat while we're having a meeting. So let's keep going. And that's where it gets so frustrated and we lose that balance. So with that assumption, with that being put into place, I'd like to suggest a few ways how we can maintain or at least make it a little bit more balanced. I think the first one here would be you do need to set a work schedule and stick to it. Just like when we go to the office, right? You know, in the office, we know that we report for work at 8, 9 o'clock, whatever time. And then we know that there is a certain lunch times that we need to take a break because bosses will say clear the office or go out. Even with the hybrid work measures right now, we do have lunch times and stuff like that. So, and by the time if you usually log off at work in the office at 6 p.m., do the same when you're at home. 6 p.m., close the laptop or turn off the computer. You leave it going and go ping, another email. Never mind, since I'm at home, let me reply one more. And you need to do something for the boss in the evening. And there goes your balance. Right, so tip number one, set a work schedule as if you are in the physical office. Just recreate that. With that, maybe we have to slightly stretch it a little bit, but it's better than you not doing anything at all. And a second tip I would suggest is, in fact, leverage the fact that you're working from home. How do you even be more productive, or even not productive, but as productive as you're in the office? Is to simulate little sessions like that. For example, just like I mentioned, for the office, we would walk to the meeting, and we would walk out to buy lunch. So at home, we walk like 2 steps, we went to the kitchen, right? So it's not enough for that breaks, not enough for that mental space. So for myself, I'm speaking from my personal experience because I can be at home for the entire week, training after training, meeting after meeting, but I create little moments where I have a little break. For example, I would take time that during example, between 2 meetings, I will go and do my laundry. And it's very therapeutic when you do monotonous, boring routine stuff. Put it in, and you put it takes your mind off your work for a while. And sometimes I have a washroom right beside me, but I have another washroom in my bedroom that is about maybe 20 steps away. I will purposely walk to the other toilet that's 20 steps away. So it's like a simulation of a mini walk to a meeting. And it helps me. You can be interviewing me at midnight right now, and I have done 12 hours of training. I will still be so chirpy because I constantly find little pockets of time, right? To give me mental space, time to breathe, time to rest. The third and final one, because this is a podcast, I can go on for the next hour. So the third one here is, I would say that make some plans. Make some plans after work hours. You know, at home, right, everything gets blurred. And then we think, never mind, I have all day, right? I have all night to work. As a result, it ends up in burnouts, overwork, because I have many friends, clients who work, then they look up, oh, it's already 8 p.m. And one more email, it's 10 something in the night, gone. And then they are so tired, so exhausted, so frustrated, barely have enough sleep. And then next morning is the whole process again. So what I suggest, the third one is make plans for after work hours. I do a lot of, even if you don't have friends to meet up, and now with the heightened measures, we can't dine in, sometimes you can make an appointment with yourself. For example, I'll put 6:30 p.m., go for a swim. Oh, I've got a swim appointment. And I will just stop whatever I do. Or I will say I will make an appointment with, sometimes I even go for a walk. I'll say, okay, I'm going to make an appointment with shopping at this supermarket that is half an hour away, right? I have to drive there or I walk there. I get out of the house. So when I know something is waiting for me, I have made a personal promise to do that something, much higher chance you know when to put a stop. And because with the scarcity of time, that pushes us to become more productive, even though we are at home, because we don't have this false perception that we can carry on all night long since we're at home, because that is usually very draining, causes burnout, and is not productive at all. So there you go, 3 tips for our listeners.
I think the last tip would be very, very helpful for me, knowing something's waiting for me at the end of the day.
Yes, you are right. That is definitely a very big pull, right? Makes you excited. Ooh.
Yeah. With the fact that we can't travel right now, but we still have leave to clear. How can we effectively clear that leave, and what can we do when we're on that leave?
Oh yeah, I think this will apply for those of us who are employees. It doesn't apply for myself, and it becomes a problem because for me, as a business owner, every day is potential to make money, right? So I do apply on myself. So I pay myself a salary, by the way. So I have a boss mindset, but I do give the privileges of an employee to myself. So I give myself time off. In fact, today is one of my me days, right? I'm doing this podcast on my so-called rest day, although it's rest day, but I'm busy.
Thank you so much, Maxine.
You're welcome. I would usually use my me days to go for a swim or write my book and do reply some emails and just Netflix away. Just time to recharge. So I think since we have leave, and it varies for every individual, some have 14 days, 21 days, etc., etc. Some of us with limited leave, like 14 days or what, we can't really go overseas and have a 14-day quarantine and then come back. Those of us with many, many days, you can consider that. As a matter of fact, many of my clients who have used their 1 month leave to travel back to Switzerland, they're from Switzerland, to visit their families, and they come back with a 14-day quarantine, more than enough to clear. Okay, that aside, I'm talking for the most of us who don't have that kind of luxury. So here are some tips. Instead of taking block leave, I'm not talking about the banks. Banks will force you to take block leave. Most of us, if we have to take, for example, we have 14 days, 21 days. Instead of taking 5 days in a row, 10 days, you will go nuts at home. You end up doing work. So I suggest you take short ones, like 2 to 3 days, instead of like long 5, 10, 12 days, right? And when you take those leave, many of us like to take it on Fridays, right? So that we have like long weekend. But actually, when that happens, you come back on Monday, you cry because the work just builds up. And on top of that, if you take leave on weekdays, on weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and all that, that's where everybody comes out to play. You know, everywhere is long queue, everything. Even though we say heightened measures, have you been shopping, my dear Mira? I walk around malls, it's crowded. Especially on weekends. So forget about social distancing. Everyone's like, whoa, one big group there. So taking leave 2 to 3 days on weekdays, yeah, like Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe Wednesday, Thursday, that kind of timing. That's one of my suggestions. So here you play like that, and there are a lot of benefits to it, right? Less crowd, and you don't have so much to catch up, right? You come back on the weekday, you can still catch up the next day versus a long weekend. Second tip, how we can use our leave is, for myself, again, speaking from my experience, I have been taking hotel staycations. Yes, support our Singapore industry as well. If you have not used the Singapore Rediscovers vouchers, to bring back to this point, there are many, many options. Just Google it. In fact, as I was thinking about this question earlier on, I'm just thinking, I have seen many websites, right, that will suggest what do you do during your leave. And many tips came up, right, which we already know. One of it is to go and use these vouchers to visit places of interest. Be a tourist in your own country. I never visited Singapore so much under the last 1 year. It's like every other week to all the places like a tourist. Somehow we're so excited visiting other countries. When it comes to our own country, it's like, nah, it's there to stay. No, I better go visit before they all close shop. Another way, of course, this is my personal practice. I use my leave day as days to, example, I'll take 2, 3 days along the way. Instead of just thinking, take leave to what? Cannot go anywhere. Use the time to declutter your home. I've cleared up like, I think more than 10 bags of clothes. I gave them to charity. Oh my gosh. How on earth did I buy like 200 over bags over God knows how many years, right? And they're too nice to throw, but I don't really like them anymore. And now I just feel like, oh, it's like chopping off the fats off your body, you know. It's very therapeutic, you know. So
practicing the Marie Kondo.
Yes, I didn't want to mention her name to give her too much credit. I think a lot of us have been doing decluttering as a form of stress relief. or just monotonous tasks, or even clean up your home, reshape things and reposition things. So there's a lot to do at home if you are not going to visit places of interest. Right? Also, depending where you stay, like I stay in a condo, so I have not made use of my pool in the last previous before COVID times. Now COVID times, like I swim there every week. So like, yay, finally I'm making use of it. So look around you. There are many cost-effective options. You don't have to take up sports like I used to cycle, and cycling is expensive. Servicing the bike, buying, and then all the gear. I bought so many kinds of outfits. I went crazy with cycling. But now I just do swimming, walking. That cost me nothing. Just the same swimsuit that I wear all the time is different shorts and t-shirt, and that's it. So look around you. In summary, look around you, take little blocks of time to have little injections of these timeouts, and promise yourself during those days of don't look at your email, because if your bosses ask you to take leave, they need to respect that. In Asia, we don't really respect that. People will call you, sorry to disturb you on your vacation, but I want to ask you, oh, please. People do that. Don't be that person, and don't allow others to do that to you. And that's how you can achieve your work-life balance in the long run.
For me personally, I have this like jittery feeling that whenever like I'm off of work, whether it's on a weekend or like at night, and then like I just feel like, crap, should I do that now? When I should be resting. I should be resting, but my mind just keeps drifting off to work. How can I fix that?
Thank you. This is something that I can relate to, right? Because you just think that, should I just get it over and done with so that I can have a peace of mind, right? Yeah, then I have a simple tip for you. We call it the 5-minute power rule, right? So I tell myself 5 minutes is just an expression. It can be 5 minutes, it can be 10 minutes. I do have, in fact, that happened just last night, and I was working till 2+. I was thinking, okay, time for bed. And I looked at my work, and I realized, oh dear, if I just finish this, I think I can have a better sleep. But I told myself I need to set time for it. So I set 10 minutes. I said, no matter whether I finish it or not, by 10 minutes, I'm going to bed. When you have done something and you've at least addressed it, like do a little bit of it, versus just going to bed without touching it, you will still feel better. So that was what I did. I just started on something, and I looked at it. Oh, I think it takes another hour or so. But I'm glad I got started. Okay, now I feel like, I'm on the move. And then I went to bed anyway. And then this morning, I finished the rest of it. So yeah, do know yourself. If you're not the type that can, leave it, then don't, because you'll be like me, whole night on the bed thinking, I should have done something. I should have at least got started. Yeah, set a time, do a little bit of it, and then finish it off the next day.
Hi, thank you for tuning into this episode of Aventis Know Season 3. We hope this season will be able to help you scale greater heights in your career. Now, we all know that, work-life balance is not something that we find the answer to like a math question, or like, that's the answer. Work-life balance is something that we have to find and continuously practice. There has to be a discipline there to practice work-life balance, and to find out where do we draw the line between our work and our life, because we all have many responsibilities, and it can be quite challenging, especially right now with the pandemic going on, to juggle all these responsibilities and keep up to the expectations. And it is very subjective to each individual. So if you do have any questions regarding how to balance your work and your life, do drop down your questions in the comment section below, or drop us a DM if you'd like at Aventis Learning. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more Aventis episodes, and we'll see you soon.